Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Russ Jones.
And Brad Kennan.
We are wide open. Welcome to Tuesday. What is it, Tuesday? We're doing this?
I do believe it's a Tuesday. We don't drop till Thursday, so all people, it's a Thursday.
Okay. How are you doing today?
I'm fine.
Yeah, you having a good day?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
You're ready to die. You know, the weather's going to get cold this week, and, you know, we're all traumatized. How do people ever get by? You know, we used to not have four-wheel drives. You know, it's going to be like 0 degrees.
And it's not going to be fun. I'm just no. It's the problem is the people of today are not as hardy as the people of yesteryear because we're all kind of soft.
Yeah.
So we get cold, we go buy bigger pants, some long johns, some new boots, better gloves. How much is it, how much? What's your most expensive pair of gloves? What they cost?
Maybe $100.
Exactly. Do you think people back in the day could go buy $100 pair of gloves? No. When growing up, we had like brown jersey gloves that cost $1, and they just got wet and you put 2 pair on then.
I remember that. You had no way when you're in the woods to stay warm at all. There was no gloves, there were no boots that were waterproof. And I was out this weekend and it was like in the 20s and the wind was blowing hard and I was as cold as I had been in a long time. I mean, it was.
I was
not very good.
I was on doing a job with my guys a couple weeks ago. I think it was right before Thanksgiving, and it doesn't sound like it's cold, but we were in the middle of cornfields, and it was 25 degrees. But it was that, overcast, just cold, just that moisture. It's almost like it's going to snow, but not really. So you feel that, and the wind was blowing 25 miles an hour. And I just said, you know what? We're done. We're out of here. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, this is not fun. Our hands are freezing. Every time you move over, the wind's blowing up your jacket or whatever. We just said, I called it. We said, well, we're going back to the shop and we're going to start again next week. So, no, the cold is something that I do not like, and is funny because as a kid, I used to love to go skiing and snowmobiling, and we all did. But as we get older, what happens, Russ?
We get soft.
There's not like some biological term where
softness. No.
Okay.
I remember in the 70s, man, I was probably 9 or 10, and I had made several $1,000s trapping because, furs were worth a lot then. And I remember that I spent $250 on a pair of Red Ball boots because they were legitimately waterproof.
In the 70s.
In the 70s, $250. It was worth an immense amount of money to me, to have good quality boots for the first time in my life.
Right.
And then when you're coon hunting, you're always using those carbide lights that were like a little candle that had a reflective lens, and it was just one person. So the person, I've talked about this before, Grandpa killing me off because the limb's smacking me in the face and it's cold and you're like, and you have these big red stripes on your face that you're going through there. But,
it is. We were tougher back then.
We were. I'm usually dressed for walking it doesn't take much to be comfortable when you're walking, but man, I was dying off this weekend. But I mentioned this to you before, but because it's so cold, and I know our guest is coming on from some places really cold.
Right.
So, one of the things people always ask about Bigfoot is, how does he get by? What do they do when the weather is legitimately cold, like it is right now, where it's near 0 at nights or snow on the ground? There's not, a drive-through for them to go through. They obviously are having to eat other animals, through the winter. I mean, are you thinking that they go in caves, or they go in coal mines, or they're, torpor, which is a word for, like in this area, the bears don't really truly hibernate. They kind of go in and out. When it's cold, they'll sleep for a week or something. And what do you think?
I believe that they find shelter. I believe they're intelligent enough to do that. caves, overhangs. I do remember a story one time reading, or it was a report where someone had seen a Bigfoot or thought they saw a Bigfoot, went into a cave, found, piles of pine boughs to keep them up, something off the ground. I don't know if there's that many caves around. Do they hunker down just under a big pine tree, go find a pine grove and hopefully get under a tree where there's not so much cold and wind, and hopefully that's the way it works. But other than that, I have no idea.
I mean, pine groves are what, like 10 degrees warmer roughly, in the winter, 10 degrees cooler in the summer, so you could kind of pile those up. And if you had more than one of you, you could kind of get together and make it so it felt 20 or something instead of 0.
Sure. And, thick fur, some layer fat, maybe. I don't, I have no idea. I'm taking guesses here, but I just don't think there's a ton of caves here in Ohio, the eastern side, maybe not the western side. So I literally have no idea. Maybe find an old abandoned barn. I think we've been out in the woods a couple times, and we've even found some abandoned houses and barns and sheds and things like that. So,
and there's some reports of that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that stuff scattered around. But anyway, it doesn't even get as cold here as it does where our next guest is coming from.
Yeah.
Would you like to bring our next guest on, or I'll go ahead and add it?
You go ahead. How about it?
All right. So, our guest for this evening is Doug Hajicek. He's kind of our mentor in the podcast world. He's the one that talked us into doing this. Actually, talked Russ into doing it, and Russ drugged me into it. So thanks, Doug. So
you're sucked in, Brad.
I got sucked in. So how are you doing tonight, Doug?
I'm doing good. Keeping warm.
So I was gonna say, we were talking about what does Sasquatch do in the wintertime when it gets cold? Obviously, you have reports up where you're at, and I think you're in Minnesota, correct?
Yeah, most of them actually are near peat bogs up here, which are warm. I mean, they get quite hot even.
So,
but
really,
my feelings are some of them boogie out of here. Some of them do. They just go south where it's more moderate. I think some stay. It depends on their age, their taste. I really just don't think there's a rule, and that's why they're so dang hard to pin down. Because they just do, they're all individuals. Just like people, some people who live in Florida. I live in Minnesota.
What's the coldest that you take at a temperature or a report, Doug? You told me earlier that it was like 0 up where you are now.
60 below, true 60 below, wind chill of probably 90 to 100 below. I've been out in weather like that. The day I put my one of my bear cams in, actually, it was a true 40 below that day, I remember. And we had to be outside all day, the whole day. And I remember we had these, I know how to dress warm because I got taught by guys like Will Steger and Paul Shirky, Polar Explorers, literally taught me personally how to dress to withstand temperatures forever. Like, you can just be outside forever the way they taught me. And so we're installing this bear cam in this terrible weather because all the other techs are inside in this warm cabin feeling really sorry for us. And me and Joe are out there sweating we're actually warm all day. We are warm. Our feet are warm. Our bodies are warm. We were out there for maybe 7 hours, and we come in and we crawled in through the door to put on this big show. And we were frozen. And we were laughing. Oh my God, we were so warm. So the key here is to dress warm. You wear mucklucks, very flexible boots. So
wait a second, say that word again.
Muckluck. A muckluck.
Muckluck.
And the reason is your feet need to have circulation to keep warm. Too many people wear stiff boots in the cold weather, and it cuts your circulation off. Even Red Bull boots do. Red Wing, all these boots cut your circulation off. So you get like a Steger muckluck, and they're made out of moose hide, and they have a rubberized, just dipped coating on the bottom. And they're so flexible. Your feet will never get cold. You can be out in 90 below weather. You can literally, guys, be out in 90 below weather for weeks. Your feet would never even get a little chilled. That's
really.
how important circulation is.
So does all these shoes kind of look like, kind of hair on them kind of stuff? Like you picture?
No. Go look up Steger Mucklucks and put it up.
I got it.
Steger Mucklucks. And this is what you do to keep warm. Anybody who wants to be outside for a long time. And there was a time, my longest trip in Steger Mucklucks was 10 days outside, never going in, never getting warm, never a campfire. For 10 days, I walked from Ely into Canada.
Which show was that for?
Is this
that
what
was
they
for
look
a
like?
music video for MTV?
Is this what you're talking about? Those are vintage Steger Mucklucks.
Well, it doesn't matter. They haven't changed.
Okay. Well,
I haven't seen them yet.
But they're I haven't seen them either, Brad. Put them up.
I thought I did. I thought I shared. Oh, I got to add it to the stream. Sorry.
There you go.
There we go.
So up in the corner, click the bottom ones are not Steger Mucklucks. Click the top.
Pharrells.
Yep. No, that one. Click it.
Yeah.
In fact, those are the exact boots I wore on my little. There. Yep.
Right there.
But see that rubber on the bottom? That's actually just dipped. It's not sewn on even. They don't even want any stitching to interfere with your circulation. So they're dipped. These are the ticket. Those are the real things. Will Steger wore that exact pair with no alterations all the way across Antarctica, walked. Never got cold. And they, I'm sure they hit 120 below.
It's only $179.
Yeah, they're not that expensive.
Because I have a very large foot. So
you can get them big.
I have a hard time keeping my feet warm. And
Brad, you buy these, you will never take them off. They're just amazing.
My wife may get pissed in bed.
Well,
maybe she can say
she'll get used to it. That rubber's kind of grippy. The rubber is pretty grippy on the bottom.
Well,
but the key is you want to keep them dry. You have to keep them dry because they're made out of real leather. You have to keep silicone spray on them. That's all you got to do is keep them dry.
Okay.
Wow. Hey, Doug. So what's the coldest that you ever taken a Bigfoot report? Meaning, that someone called one in.
40, probably about 40 below, or some of the coldest. And usually they happen, which is interesting, up in like the line above Two Harbors, Minnesota. So it seems like my theory is there's more peat bogs up there.
So explain this whole peat bog thing for me.
Okay. Have you ever heard of a peat bog fire?
Yeah, I know that we have them, and we had them in the high mountains here in West Virginia.
Okay.
We had peat bog fires.
It's literally rotten soil that's fermenting and, creating methane gas, and it can go down and be 100 and 200 feet deep. Wow. And it's just putting off so much heat from the decaying, plant matter. And that's why it's putting off heat. And that's why if you do get a fire in a peat bog, it ain't never going out. Never. It'll burn for hundreds and hundreds of years.
That's what happened here in West Virginia. I think it burned over 100 years, and it burned down to there's the Dodley Sods wilderness area is where it is, and did that.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't think about the huge amount of warmth that comes out of a peat bog. So I think if they're going to stay, I believe they head up to the peat bog areas. Tons
of
deer
cover up there in there too? Like
Oh God, yes. Yep. Plenty of cover on the edges of the peat bogs.
So, I think we need to back up a little bit here. We have some people that are not quite Bigfoot people, and they listen to the podcast and watch it. So we introduced Doug, but we didn't actually say what Doug does. He could just be some random guy.
I don't even know what I do, Brad.
That's a podcast itself for Doug.
That we pulled off the street and said, let's bring this guy on. He's from Minnesota. It's cold. Let's have him on because it's cold outside.
That's so perfect with me. I could talk about cold weather for all night.
Okay. So how about if we just say what Doug did? So Doug was producer of Monsterquest.
Yeah. The big hit TV show. Yeah.
Famous TV show. Were you the first individual to get a picture of a giant squid?
Yeah, video, yes.
Video of it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's
which was no one knew that even actually existed at that point. It was
not not that big.
Okay.
So how
we're talking 54 feet. Even the ones that they had recovered dead ones were never that big, or
So how big was the one that you videoed?
54 feet minimum,
Minimum 50.
up to 108 foot.
Okay, depending.
Could have been that big, yeah, up to 108
that's,
foot.
that's pretty big.
Yes.
Um,
It for sure was the biggest eye also ever photographed on the planet.
the biggest what?
Eyeball.
Okay.
1.5 feet wide.
That's a pretty big eyeball.
Yeah.
Wow.
Think of the optometry bill.
Yeah.
They charge by the foot. Anyway, so that's not the only two things you've done.
No, he did
No.
or the Legend Meets Science, the
Yep.
huge hit.
Yep.
One for anybody that's interested in Bigfoot, which was really the first scientific documentary that was ever done professionally.
Yep.
Was a huge thing.
That's a classic documentary. The bear cam, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I've done a lot of these. I call them animal spy cams throughout the years. I built the first underwater camera system for underwater for the web, to share it with people.
Sure.
It was really cool, and scientists.
And what Brad's talking about is you actually put a camera in a wild bear den.
Yes.
And I mean, it was a crazy number of people were watching this. The bear had cubs.
Oh, yeah. It was like a million people on.
A million people were watching this bear stay in its den all winter, which, is kind of unheard of because prior to that, no one had been able to share it with the public. Is that right?
Right. And, the goal was to film the birth and then the care of, wild black bears.
So how did you get into all this? I mean, just not one day you wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to go put a camera in a bear den and somehow we're going to get this video signal from a bear den to the internet. And, there has to be some technology involved. You have to have some knowledge of all these things. So how did you get started in this?
Well, I started doing, excuse me, let me get something to drink here.
It's dry up there.
It's funny.
It's so
Doug,
dry here. It's crazy.
I'm breaking one of my rules that we're actually asking for background on a guest because usually we don't care.
Well,
but you're awfully interesting. So I want to know how you got into this.
Well, okay. I was doing one day I woke up and I said, I want to do a wildlife show.
That's it.
Because I was doing a ton of wildlife photography.
Okay.
The only thing I had use for was just to show my family and friends. And one day I'm like, why don't I do a wildlife show? Well, one day I was at, I was with a bunch of WWE wrestlers. And I said to one of the guys, a buddy of mine, Kurt Hennig, the Mr. Perfect. And I said, geez, we should do a fishing show. Just do something. And so, we did. We did a pilot for it. And one day we were actually shooting for that outdoor show. And I met Ron Shera. And I said, hey, I'd love to talk to you, whatever. And would you be in this other show? And he did. And he did a bit in this other show. And then I invited him over to my house. And over a napkin and some brandy, of course. We had to have brandy. We pinned out an outdoor show. And then literally the next day we went to Ron Hamburg at Channel 4, CBS. And he knew who Ron was. And he goes, because he was an outdoor writer, big outdoor writer. And he goes, yeah, let's do it. So I got a pilot. So I did the pilot. It was, got great ratings. Then he's like, well, can you do 13 more of these? Yep, sure. So we just kept doing them. And now that show is still going. That was in 1985. That show is still, it's in its like 1,200th episode now.
What's it called?
It's called, it's gone through a number of name changes. It started out as North Country. Then it became Call of the Wild for quite a while. Okay. Then it became Backroads with Ron and Raven. Then it became Minnesota Bound, and it's kind of stuck with Minnesota Bound, which I think is the worst title. Because, we would shoot all over the world. So why would you want to call a show that shoots all over Minnesota Bound?
Right. Exactly.
Whatever. That's what they decided.
You're always trying to come back to Minnesota.
But the point is, the guy that I originally sat down with just retired now from his own show after 1,000 episodes, and his daughter Laura has taken over the show, which is so cool. So my first show is still on the air. And then I went through that show, I was meeting all these scientists, doing an interview with a bear biologist or a wolf biologist or a photographer, whatever. I kept meeting scientists. So then I'm thinking, well, gee, this is kind of stupid just to meet these people. And then I would, through the interviews, I would realize there was a lot they didn't know. So I'm like,
Really?
So I would approach him and go, hey,
So
let's do this cool experiment. Let's do this let me build this thing. And, will you endorse it? Or, basically.
So I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you ran across these bear biologists, these wolf biologists, things like that? And these are, professionals did they spend a lot? You said they didn't know a lot. So does that mean they didn't spend a ton of time in the field?
No, I'm not really saying they didn't know. What I mean is there were certain things I would ask, certain particular things that hadn't been done. And I'm like, I was shocked. I was like, what? Okay. So you've never witnessed a bear birth? No one's ever done that. No, it's never been seen by humans. And I'm like, well, that's going to change.
Right.
And we would I would just come up with these simple ways to film animal behavior. I wanted to do I was curious how intelligent wild fish were. And I wanted to see what they did at night when there's no divers around. I wanted to see the small animals in a lake like
wild fish do at night.
Yeah, what do they do?
I'm asking, what do they do? Do they sleep?
Well, yeah, they sleep. So I built this thing. I think I sent you a picture of the Benthic Explorer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Throw that up and I'll explain this thing because it's quite a contraption.
You're asking a lot here.
I built it. I know.
So I know, Doug, that one of the other things when you talk about that Cameron that you were doing, you were the first person that found out that the beaver and the muskrats were actually not fighting and arguing and having turf battles. They were actually acting in concert. Yeah,
they were cohabitating completely.
Okay, let me see here. What's
it's the round. It's got a glass dome on it and a bunch of instruments and some lights.
Because you sent me a couple of things.
It looks very underwater. It's on my resume, but
yeah, I'm trying to. It's not.
It was one of the first pictures I think I'd sent.
Okay, there's that.
It's blue. It says
Benthic Explorer. Is that what it is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just going to do this.
Benthic means bottom.
Okay, I'm just going to do this the easy way and just kind of share my screen.
Yeah, do what my son does when we do slideshows. He just goes, he just zips right through them.
So, Doug, how many shows have you done, like in terms of a number?
Probably about 300 now. Wow. Yep, there's the Benthic. Okay, so do you see the multicolored lights? So this was the first time anybody thought of using multi-frequency lighting ever. I should have patented it. It's now used in Mercedes-Benzes, and it's a multi-frequency light thing that we came up with.
Okay, so what does that do?
It pierces the water better. Pierces through particulate.
Okay.
It's because you're incorporating every light frequency.
Okay.
So no matter what the conditions are, you're going to see farther.
Okay.
So that was a world's first. Then it had a fish feeding system. So from a mile away, I could feed. We had a long tube running under the water from shore into a lab, and I could shoot food out into the water. And then we could play music, for instance, different music. And we had piezo crystal speakers on it, so we could experiment with music. What kind of music do fish like? What kind of music do the animals like?
Did you come to any conclusions?
Sure, country music. Yeah, Travis Tritt.
Okay, so if I go fishing next year and play Travis
Tritt, yeah, they seem to like it.
I'm going to do that. I'll put it underneath the bass boat with a small speaker, play Travis Tritt.
There you go.
And I'll see if that does better.
So the idea was we would we would play a song and we would, shoot food out. We would train the fish. Wanted to see how long we could just train fish. So there you go. And I also had a seiche meter. First time anybody had seen inland tide in total perfect real-time action. Because I had cameras, and then I invented this little thin flotation tubes that would move with the tide right and left. So we could see what the moon phases, and that was really cool. It had never been seen. Then I had a microscopic camera on it, so I could film all the copepods and the mysis shrimp, which are freshwater shrimp that live in many lakes. People don't know about that, but there's shrimp. Film them migrating up and whatever, just all sorts of stuff. It would take hours to talk about all that we learned.
All right.
So that was just one thing. We can move on to some other thing. But
Yeah, so
I love inventing things. I love the challenge of learning things that we've never seen. I love the idea of peeking into another dimension. Spine. What goes on in the what? For all we know, there was a swimming pig under there. You know what I mean? I'm just talking diarrhea.
So what is on your mind to do next? I mean, you have that next idea.
Yeah, you aren't kidding. In fact, I've already started building it. Okay, so my goal is to put a permanent like similar to the benthic, but an underwater camera system with a profiler I've invented, which pumps air from okay, so we have a buoy.
Okay.
We have solar panels. We have batteries.
Okay.
Then picture a very not a spiral what would you call it? A spool. No spool, but picture 52,000 feet of cable with a camera on it. Okay. That can withstand the pressures of going down into the some of the deep trenches, like the Mariana Trench.
So the question I have is 52,000 feet of cable, because this is my job.
Yes, but listen to this, Brad.
We installed 17,000 feet of cable today.
Oh, I can believe it.
So
but picture that going straight down.
Right.
It would be very heavy.
Just the weight of the cable.
This is what I invented. An air profiler.
Okay.
All you do is pump air into the profiler, right? That's up, and the whole thing becomes then lighter and just comes up anyhow. So it's a profiler versus a spool wind-up system.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so. So you're pumping air into it to.
Yeah.
Are you pumping it into the cable to basically keep it at zero, like a
kind of neutrally, everything neutrally buoyant?
That's the word.
Yep.
Because
and a profiler. My dream is to have people to be able to control the depth. Literally, observers control the depth. Scientists, even spectators, and to get this on the World Wide Web. Think about what you might see down 30,000 feet, 24 hours a day.
So how far off the coast? So are you talking like Mariana's Trench?
Right.
Yep. I mean, I'm not
that would be one spot. I would love to put a camera for a year.
How would
I've got the buoy designed, everything. This huge buoy, and it's going to have lights that blink and
so would it work like the off-rig oil platforms with like basically a GPS system? So you're going to have turbines on there, or actually underwater impellers that kind of move the water around.
Correct.
And keep it stationary. Okay.
Yep. It's a whole. And all I need is funding for this one.
Only $2 million. I mean,
it's
Russ.
I know how to build it. I just don't know exactly what it'll end up costing.
So where does that usually come from? Or I mean, surely there's universities that are interested in that.
Sure, you would think, but I'm not really that connected when it comes to marine biology. Even though I've got some pretty good marine accomplishments, I don't have any. No, I have no credentials. I'm just a nobody in that world. But that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that you don't really need to have any credentials to do this kind of stuff. You just have to have the will to do it and a little creativity, and you got to have a hardware store nearby.
Right. Machine shop.
Yeah, I have a machine shop that I run, and so I've got access to CNCs. But all this stuff can be done, and there's just so many things yet to do.
So how did you get interested in Bigfoot? I mean, I hear all these different things, the wide variety of things, but I mean, you're really renowned in the Bigfoot field for, a lot of accomplishments.
Yeah. Well, that was because I was up doing one of my crazy inventions up in the Arctic. I was deploying big, huge, giant lures with cameras built into them to try to get footage of one of these really 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-foot trout, lake trout, that I believe live up in the Arctic. I saw one once with my own eyes. And I was reeling in a 30-pound trout, which is, 48 inches, 30-inch girth. And I'm reeling that in, and here comes this thing that made my trophy trout look like nothing. And it's coming just in slow motion and slow frequency, like a human, like a mermaid swimming towards it to try to eat it. And I went, ooh, I want to get footage of one of them things next. So we were up there doing that. It was really windy this one day. We had to pee, go to shore, footprints. And
Really?
I knew they weren't bear because I had already done a lot of bear stuff, and I knew they weren't polar bear. And they were huge human-like footprints that came out of the water into this beautiful Caribbean-like sand up in the Arctic, and these sand eskers that come out of these lakes up in the Arctic. And there's hardly any tree cover up there, right? So we follow these footprints up to the tree cover, and there's a footprint in front. So picture this, Brad and Russ. There's a footprint in front of the tree trunk and one directly behind it. That meant it walked over the tree. 7 foot, it was about 7 foot stunted black spruce tree, if you know what they are. And it stepped over that tree. And that's the guy that I was with. One of them goes, "We need to go now." It was literally exactly the words that came out of his mouth. "We need to go now." And I said, let's just go to the other side of these trees. There's a little stand of trees, right? And those trees are like 100 years old, but they're stunted. They're right on the border where they can't grow anymore. And similar to an alpine situation. All of a sudden, we get on the other side, and there's footprints going off into the horizon, man, in the tundra. You can just see how deep they were. So that's how I got hooked on Bigfoot. Wanting answers. What did I see? And we did filmed everything. It ran on an NBC news affiliate, the tracks, and a little story. The guy I was with was a journalist. He did a stand-up, and we did a little piece for the news on the mysteries of the North. And of course, I never thought this was going to change my life, and I didn't think anything of it. But the news, they recycle all the tapes, so all those tapes probably got recycled.
All right.
How long ago was that?
That would have been in 1991. It's probably 30 some years ago.
So have you had a sighting? I know, because when you get focused on something, I mean, you, like no other person, puts all their time into resources. You literally only sleep a couple hours a day.
Yeah.
And so, it's hard to imagine that you haven't came up with some, I don't want to say theories, but ideas on how you think you can prove that Bigfoot is real.
Sure, I've got 100 of them and not enough time in my life. People, it's interesting too, and I've experimented with it enough to get information out, sharing, here's how you can do it. It's like nobody ever repeats what I suggest, and that's a little disheartening. We were talking about the baby footage, remember yesterday? It's always a little I always think people are going to grab an idea and run with it. Other people. Because
Right.
I'm only one guy. I can't do much. I want other people to do it, and they don't. So I was like, how come that is? What do I have to do? You know what I mean?
I'm not sure there's that many people that are really into things that much. Like I originally met you because I had asked for permission to call and talk to you about ideas on cameras and,
right.
Things like that in the woods. But I'm not sure that there's that many people that, beyond some of the basic things.
Oh, I bet you there's 1,000. I think there's 1,000 homeowners in the U.S. that have Bigfoot activity at their home on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think that too.
Yeah, and they just, how many will do anything about it? Probably not any of them. But there's just so many simple things you can do. For instance, let's just talk about a tent.
Okay.
So I invented this tent that has portholes sewn into it that are those rubberized magnets that we all stick in our refrigerator.
Yes.
The soft rubber they're silent. So I have this portal, a magnetic ring sewn in, and then using the tent material, I sew that over the porthole so it all blends, right? Then on the inside, there's on a hinge, the same magnet. It's all cut out of one piece, the ring and then the cover. So then it just folds over and it snaps shut. So you have a portal that you can open up silently in your tent. Put one on each side of the tent. So when you're in camp, on expedition, right, you hear something banging around. I mean, every week I get a report from somebody that's had a Bigfoot in their camp. It's like, well, what throws rocks at you know what I mean? What does this?
Right.
It's probably a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Well, And then there's a lot of researchers, but
those people, honestly, they don't want to know what's banging around.
No. But I'm talking about researchers now.
Okay.
Then they become researchers,
Well,
and they end up going on many hundreds of expeditions, and they keep claiming they hear something out. Well, why not put my camera portals, or at least peak portals?
well,
So now you can open them up sight. You don't have to get out of your sleep bag.
no, I understand, but do you think that those people, they really don't want to see it? I mean, seriously,
no, that could be. Yeah, you could.
They
be
want
right,
to see it from 100 yards away.
Yeah, no, I realize.
And
It would take guts to open the portal, right?
Oh, it takes guts. Like I said, I've had them rock my camper, and I always called everybody a sissy.
No, I know.
They don't just open their camp. Their
I'm
tent,
the last
look
guy.
outside and, no, I wasn't looking out the freaking window because I know that thing would be looking right at me. And
no, I realize.
So.
But I've been called a sissy by enough people to go, well, why don't you put portals in your tent and then we'll see how you do.
Right.
But
That's
those are
idea.
the kinds of things that I love dreaming up, and I've got hundreds of things like that. I don't know what to do with this information. One part of me goes, well, I should get some kind of copyright, and maybe I should start producing tents with the portals in them. And then the other side of me goes, just tell anybody and everybody.
Right. I mean, that's
or maybe the military could use these. I don't have any idea.
That's just just that simple idea. It takes a lot of energy, production.
Oh, I actually produced a mold and a die, Brad, to die cut these. And I found I found an upholstery shop to install. First, Les Stroud got a tent. He got the first one with these portals installed.
So did Survivor Man
doing? I made
did he do it on any of his?
Sure, I think Les did, but how many? I don't know. I mean, it's just something to try.
Right.
So what else? Let's say that you had a whole camp set up that you were going to go and do with different things that were your ideas.
Sure.
The things you came. What else would you have in your campsite that you were going to do?
Okay. Well, I can give you some of the laundry list. Okay. Motorcycle dash cam. Comes with 2 waterproof cameras. Give it power, but you can power it with a tiny cell phone power supply that you can get on Amazon for $5. It'll power it all night. And you put out these thin little wires out, tiny fiber optic wires out the thing. You got your 2 waterproof cameras. You could run them out 10, 20 feet. Those cameras can go in a potato chip bag. They can go in a peanut butter jar. Can buried under the ground looking up. You can do whatever you want with them because they're very tiny and they're waterproof. So now you've got a monitor inside the tent. Bring a black cloth that's thick enough so that way you can throw it over your head and look at the monitor. You hear something? Turn it on, look at the monitor. And it's filming. When it's on, it's automatically filming. So you're not going to have the worry of, oh my God, I forgot to turn the camera on or whatever. You know what I mean? Right. It's going to do it automatically. So that's something I would do. And then I would maybe get another of those units and put it out remotely a little ways. Maybe put it in a cooler looking up. I love little cameras because you can hide them anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Greg, you can install one on your dog. You can put it under the picnic table. I mean, if there's a picnic table in your camp, under a chair, try to disguise it.
I'm sure you would have one of your electric bikes since you have 30.
Oh, sure, yeah, I've got
electric bikes with your cameras on it, so you could take rides.
Right, yep, and that they come on automatically, and they film the audio and the video, front and rear with IR, or whatever you can control the IR. You can do whatever. Color. I really think the element of surprise is a big deal, and I don't think you're going to go out hunting these things. You may run into one walking, but it's probably going to be because there was a perfect storm, the wind was blowing the right way, there was a noisy stream nearby. There's going to be some reason that they got busted, or you're in a tree stand. But I would generally, and I also would do an audio recorder, if not 2 of them, so you can triangulate audio with like a Zoom H1N1 or H1. By the way, those things I think are off spec. I do believe they record infrasound for anybody who cares to know that. They actually record down below the 20 hertz that they're supposed to, stop at. But things like that, so you're at least somewhat prepared with not just big giant game trail cameras on trees, you know.
EMF meter. I know you'd mentioned that to me before as something
Yep.
that could be not that
you
necessarily.
yes, you should have an EMF meter. Should have portals in your tent, which I think is brilliant, because you can put a big camera too out the portal. The thing is, if you can open them silently and you can't see them from the outside, chances are you're not going to disturb anything with that portal. So if you're too afraid to look with your eyes, stick your camera up to the portal, because I make them, where you can make them obviously different sizes, but the ones that I have a die for, I believe they're probably about 250 millimeters, which will take a professional camcorder lens. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of off the top of my head. If you do that, yeah, I think you're good. I think if something comes into your camp, you're going to definitely get some evidence. Oh, also Velcro. I love the spiked Velcro. Putting it on some shiny acrylic, and having that in your camp. You could have food set on it, a big potato cut up, sitting on that shiny acrylic. They seem to not be able to resist touching it. They love, I've seen this for 30 years.
You're talking about like a plexiglass type.
Acrylic, plexiglass, right.
Okay.
So, I found blue works best.
So
blue,
I don't know why.
Plexiglass.
Yeah, it may not be the color.
I've been doing this 15 years and I've never heard that.
Oh.
So I maybe there's a...
Well, they touch windows all the time and paint on cars. Why? Simple. They're tactile. They'd have to be tactile animals. They're just touching it. They're curious.
So would you spray paint the...
No.
I remember blue. A lot of people talk about they believe there's a relationship with Bigfoot. And in the last book I talked about, I had a section on that.
Yeah, that came from me originally, and I've did a bunch of podcasts, and so it's kind of getting out there now. Mm-hmm. And that came from just finding so many structures I'd find one object in all of them. It always would be blue. And we're talking remote structures that I know damn well kids didn't. They were too complex. Some of them were in swamps. Some were in water with 6 inches of water, which I believe they're just blinds. I don't believe they're huts. I believe they're just deer blinds. Always a deer trail within 5 feet. Mm-hmm. It's just too many things. When you find 100 of them and you think, oh, really? 98% of them had a little blue object in them? Really? To me, that's, I just can't ignore that, And the last one I found didn't have anything in it. Had a blue balloon up in a tree right above it.
So you think that stick structures or things like that you find is basically a deer blind?
They're deer blinds. The
Squatches are using to ambush, attack deer.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I know I've been trying to put some of the, I use the surveyor tape, which is I get in the blue collar. And so sometimes when I'm trying to track something to a certain area, I'll put that up. But of course, the hard thing is I'm trying to put it at a place where someone won't see it from a distance and come to investigate why there's something blue in the woods there.
And I think it may have something to do. I think they may have the gift of UV vision, which they're finding more and more mammals have. Caribou was the first one that they discovered that has UV vision. But it makes sense. It allows them to see predator urine. It allows them to see their own urine of their own herd. It allows them to pick the most protein-packed lichen when they're eating. Protein glows in UV light, which is really cool. There would be so many uses. And, of course, caribou come from a colder climate. They're a big animal. Kind of makes sense. Maybe a Bigfoot evolved to have UV vision. All that means is it's something they don't have. It isn't something they do have. We've evolved to have a filter to block it. They just wouldn't have that filter. So literally, Russ, you can go in, I swear to God, you can go in and find an optometrist to take out now with the eye surgery, they can take your UV filter out and you could have UV vision.
Just do one eye, Russ.
Yes. But all they're doing is removing a filter. It's like any camera you can take and send them in, and I'll take that filter out. Then you can then turn your camera into a UV camera.
Yeah, I was wondering whether it would make our cameras reflective, when they look at the game cameras, whether or not having a UV filter or not having a UV filter, would somehow make it more apparent.
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't even guess. I mean, everything I do, I guess at, but I try to base it on some kind of common sense. When you find 100 structures, everyone's got something blue in it. It's almost like it was thought out. It's like
why do you think it's there? So
I don't know. I have no idea. I think they may have a curiosity of little man-made objects, and it just is a little fiddle toy, a little, I don't know.
Russ. So start putting blue fiddle toys out with your stuff rather than crystals.
Yep.
I do have them out.
Are they blue?
Yeah.
Or pink?
Yeah. No, I have different colors, but I make sure that I always have something blue, or sometimes I'll use those little cheap primitive straw dolls, and sometimes I'll paint them blue. And then of course I've been using
be careful with paint though. There's a lot of those stinky VOCs that come off paint.
Yeah,
I wouldn't paint anything. I just buy something blue, or don't use it.
Yeah,
they're gonna smell that terrible
and sometimes you can get the on Amazon the baby food jars that come with different colors.
Yep.
And some of them are blues and different shades of blues. And so, you're just trying different things.
Do you have a blue UV flashlight, Russ?
Yes. Okay. Because of sometimes looking for blood trails and things like that. The fluids, sometimes will show up on that. But
yeah, it's amazing what a new world that opens up, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't even really thought about that, and someone talked about it maybe a year or so ago, and I had been messing with it a little bit, but it is, you're messing with so many different things. It's
I know, I realize. Yeah.
It's hard to come up with, what it is. And you may have the perfect setup or the perfect thing that you think you can attract them, and they just might not be around at that particular time, or they might not be in that area right then. Right. And you had the setup, but the animal wasn't there.
It's hard to test things.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way I should have put it better. Yeah, it's
hard to test things, but what you got to do is just cover your butt. It's all you can ever do and all you can ever hope for. Every time you go camping, cover your butt.
I remember one of the first times, Doug, that I talked to you a couple years ago about the you had designed a no hunting sign that looked like all the other no trespassing signs that everybody has, but you'd actually put one of those pinhole cameras in it. It was hardwired, so it was, not battery power and putting off all this EMF and stuff. And it actually, you could put sounds through it, whatever sounds that you wanted.
Yep. And I had it, and I saw 3 Bigfoots walk through that camera that night about 2:30 in the morning. And because it's got those cameras have AI, and it locked onto all their joints, locked onto their heads, each head, locked onto all their joints.
And how long ago was this?
Oh, this was last year. I think it was just last spring.
Okay.
So here comes the first one, big one. Second one walks through, and they're just behind the little thin aspen trees.
Being recorded at this point in time?
Yeah, we'll listen to the stories. First night, Adam's up there camping. He's installing. He's the tech we got. He's up there installing these things. And, he's making this all happen. And so I'm broadcasting Moorhead sounds out of it. So I'm just like, oh, what the hell? I got nothing to lose. So I'm broadcasting the Ron Moorhead sounds through the camera. And it's the first night they've been out there. And all of a sudden I'm like, here comes a big creature. Here comes another one. Upright, another one. And then a smaller one right behind it. So I get a hold of Adam and I'm like, do not touch, do not erase the cloud, do not, erase the card in it. And he goes, what do you mean? He said, I haven't had time to put cards in them. I haven't hooked it up to the cloud yet. I'm like, no.
Wow. The traditional.
Yeah. But man, was I excited.
Mr. Murphy strikes again.
But it did tell me one thing. Night 1 of something like that being up. Never saw it again. Not night 2 through, 80, but it was night 1.
Yeah. I always talk about when you go into an area, especially
I
an area
literally,
for the
hold on
first
a
time.
second. I literally have a military chopper shaking my entire house right now. It
Because
couldn't have been 100 feet away from the house here.
It doesn't want this story out there.
No,
It doesn't
No,
want people
no,
to-
no. I don't think that. We have an airport
choppers,
nearby.
w-
But
if
this
you're-
was-
if you lose your stream, we understand
You'll
why.
understand. No.
Blink twice if you're doing this under duress.
Yeah, I don't. But it was so loud. It was shaking the house. I've never had one quite that close. It was shaking the whole house.
But you got to be prepared the first time you do anything, or the first time you're in a new area, to have all your ducks in a row.
My
that
point.
first time,
The element,
because
yes,
they're probably not going to make a mistake again.
right. They never did. Night one, behind that little tiny camera, peeking out that no trespassing sign. That's been, there forever. You just drill a little hole and put a 3.6 millimeter lens. All the goodies were behind it. But I'm watching it live on my cell phone, So I think it's important to move cameras. Keep them moved. Keep them fresh. Don't keep them in. A lot of people say, well, I'll leave it there for a month. Well, okay, that might work. You don't know. But I think generally it's probably, you might have more advantage moving them a lot.
Yeah.
So how can we get some information on some of these cameras that you are using? You're saying 3.6.
Oh, anybody can buy any of this stuff. It's all just commercially.
Well, I get that, but a lot of people just don't know what to buy.
Yeah. Go to WYZE on Amazon. WYZE.
Okay. Hold
Wise cameras. You can put one up.
on.
They're cheap. They're good. They were pretty damn. I mean, we recovered almost all of them after a year out in the weather. Most of them worked. I mean, they're disposable.
I like what you're saying about moving them too. I've been trying to leave things out a year, primarily because I have so many, but I don't know when they're around. So I'm trying to I know that.
But Russ, that's the perfect setup. All of a sudden, suddenly they're all in a new spot. But then the next day, you move them again. You follow me?
Yeah.
Because now you've already established this thing where you only move them once a year.
This is what you're talking about, something like this?
No, that's not it. No. Oh yeah, it is. I see. The white's just bleached out.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. And that one, yes.
Okay. That's something that like a lot of people never even think about. Putting that behind.
But they have them in different shapes. That's a bigger
Sure.
one. They have smaller ones.
Yeah.
See that longer one?
This one.
There's one right there. I think was it $49.99.
But you're suggesting not having a battery hookup. You're suggesting
one.
trying
Those
to
are the
find a
ones we
way
use.
to actually hardwire something.
Yep.
Out there.
Right. And you can put these things will automatically put everything up in the cloud. They have AI. It'll actually give you alarms on your cell when you got action. You can monitor it live. You can record it on your cell, and as a backup, it's being recorded on the cloud. So, and you can put, like let's say you have 80 acres and you've had maybe a couple of slams in your home. You can get these put out in the woods and you can bury the cable or just throw the cable on top and put leaves on it or whatever. We didn't
Because
have
there wouldn't be a
any
noise coming from the cable at all.
No.
And really, you wouldn't have any noise from the camera either. The
They're
noise
real
would be wherever you had it.
Because it's continually recording, so it's not a trigger.
Right. There's no trigger. There's no passive sensor on them. I'm a little skeptical on the white plastic they put on the passive sensors. That might be highly visible and glowing. They don't seem to glow under my UV lights, but I'm not a Bigfoot with UV vision.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But these don't have any sensors. They're just constantly going. And you can set them up to just be triggered by the artificial intelligence, but it doesn't use a passive sensor. It's some other technology.
Okay.
So I highly recommend them.
Okay.
So it's not using the passive infrared sensor, the pure sensor that game cameras are.
Oh, correct.
Yeah. It's using some other technology.
When I had my, sighting of, these three animals, which look like a family, I took that as almost a sign, like there's something different about these cameras.
So is that, how many sightings have you had?
Well, me and Yvette have had, we had one literally close to the home here, which I can, be happy to tell. And we had one up in north of Anemia by Mille Lacs Lake together. It was standing at the side of a road at the side of a stream, and it looked like it was drying off on a very hot, windy night. And it was just doing like a hula hoop, moving its arms back and forth. We thought it was a moose at first, but as we got closer, we could see the shoulders and the arms, the fingers, the long hair, and the wind blowing while it was doing this crazy motion. And it hit us all of a sudden. Holy crap, that's a Bigfoot standing there drying off.
Wow.
So that was amazing because it was lit up like daytime in my headlights. I think at one point we were probably 4 feet from it.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty cool. And then we had one, I think it's near the Mouston exit on Highway 94 during deer hunting season. But it happened to be a time there were a ton of deer killed, a dead deer on the side of the road. Like every mile there was a fresh carcass of deer.
Probably around the rut.
And yes, but the deer hunters make deer go crazy too, and they're running out across the roads too when the deer hunters are in the woods. There's more deer activity. There's moving more, and they were getting slammed by all these semi trucks. Well, there was a stick structure behind the barbed wire fence on the freeway, and this black thing walked out of the stick structure, all black. We don't know what it was. Walks out of the stick structure and sure looked like a Bigfoot to us. Could have been a hunter, but would a hunter dress in all black?
Hope not.
Nah.
We didn't get a good look because in the freeway,
I believe that's illegal anyway. But
you're going pretty fast on the freeway, and so we saw this thing, and it was walking, but it was kind of one of those gray basket sightings. You're not really sure,
Right.
But then it's like, well, what else could it have been? Wasn't a black bear. Doubt it was a person. Be a moron to put that on during deer hunting season. And I just did an expedition there a few weeks back. We went out, we camped out there. And that's interesting where Levi Makovic had his sighting right near there. So I thought it was interesting.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Your Cobra 427.
Yes.
Kit car or authentic?
It's in between. It's actually a backdraft Cobra. They build them in South Africa complete.
Okay.
So they call them, it's got everything in it but the engine.
Okay.
Completely done but the engine. And then they install the engine for you.
Okay. So
it makes no sense, right? It's just
is it steel body or is it like
it's fiberglass.
What does it look like, Brad? I don't even know what you're talking about. I know you guys are
the original, a few of them were built out of aluminum, but generally,
you guys are car buffs.
But backdrafts are considered it's Super Performance and backdraft are the most perfectly authentic Cobras. You'd never know it wasn't authentic. Every detail.
So
on it's perfect.
When my dad was growing up, the legend has it that his friend, he had a 62 fuel injected Corvette, and his best friend had a I think 65 427 Cobra.
Yep. And that is actually my car.
That is your card. That
is the one that was owned by a really rich guy that owned it, and then they sold it back to Backdraft, and then Reg, the owner of Backdraft, raced it for a little bit, and then I bought it from Reg, and I manufacture a bunch of parts for the Backdraft Cobra.
Okay.
Factory parts.
That's interesting.
Sure. How many cars do you have?
I don't know. I didn't count them.
So
I don't know. I've been collecting cars for a lot of years and restoring cars and building, and it's just car restoration's been in our family's blood forever. My dad did it forever. Grew up with him restoring Austin Healey's and Jaguars, and he had a new cool car every freaking week, it seemed like.
That's my dad did a 69 Corvette convertible.
Yeah.
Completely done. And he's doing a 64 Impala SS right now. So with 409 in it.
Yeah. So I can never look at any machine without thinking, how can I improve this a little bit?
Right.
So then I'll call, like I called Backdraft up, and I'm like, yeah, I can make some really high quality stuff for this car, and I'll just go ahead and make tools and molds, and then mold them and send them samples. And they're like, damn, these are beautiful. So I'll start using them then. See.
Okay.
Let's see. You you collect cars, you collect slot cars.
Yeah, that too. That's weird.
And you
That's
may
kinda
have the
weird.
world's largest collection of slot cars.
Yeah, might. Yeah, I might.
What else
How
do
many
you
do you have?
collect?
Motorcycles.
Brad wants to know how many slot cars you have.
Yeah.
I never counted them.
I know a guy that used to do that, had like a slot car track, and people would come over on Friday and Saturday night to his place.
Yeah, see, I just actually
all
just
that.
finally added a slot car track to my shop.
Yeah.
Never had one all these years. Ever.
Yeah, these guys
I would
would
just use
race.
a 9-volt battery to get them, get the motors restored.
Yeah, it was.
Get 'em all
He was
cleaned.
serious about it. So
And so I finally had Adam said, "Hey, I'll build you one." So Adam built me one for my shop.
So slot cars, and then I saw some motorcycles. You have some old motorcycles.
Yep, I have lots of motorcycles. Yeah.
You have
And
30 electric bikes
Oh God, yeah, at least.
that you enjoy building in
I
your
just like
free
building
time
them.
from 2:45 to 3:15 a.m.
Yep.
before your other project you start before 5 in the morning.
Yep. So I start tapping my fingers, and I usually come up with something within a few minutes to do.
I mean, I
Some
really think
project.
you set such a good example for us. I was at the gym the other day. I take his class, and there was these older gentlemen there, and he was telling me, because I was having some science to show. I was still at the gym doing my time, and he said, "Rush, the key is to never let the old man come out, and he'll fight you, and he'll want to come out, and he'll want to tell you."
Yep.
That the bed feels warm, or that you feel tired today, or you should just take it easy today.
Yep.
He said, you never, ever, ever can do that. Never let the old man come out. Fight him all the time. And you set an example for that.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'm 25 still. I still do. Keep figuring out ways to get myself in trouble. It's like we started this radio network.
Because you needed something else to do.
Yeah, we started a publishing company a few years back, which has been challenging, but I think we're doing a better job than, we've got new technology that no other publishers are doing with the immersive book technology, where you can watch videos in a print book and listen to sound. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just not being done. So I love doing new, inventing or just combining, not inventing really.
Innovating.
I've never invented anything in my life, Brad. What I do is combine technologies. That's what
Put
I
it to
do.
new uses as well.
Yes. I don't really ever invent. I mean, yeah, I guess there's a few things, but there's not much. It's always just combining technology. I sent you like an example. There's a stick shift. There's a light around, kind of in a circle, a bright glowing, like a neon tube around a bike shifter.
I see.
It's like just a great example of stuff that I do constantly. It's kind of a blue glow on it.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
Let me see here.
By the way, this may have some Bigfoot research, this technology, because it's electroluminescence technology. Okay, so that's an electroluminescent technology light, which is basically a quantum physics light, because I can unplug the battery and it keeps going.
For
It
how
doesn't
long?
care. Oh, I don't want to say, because someone's going to challenge me.
Okay.
But I've
Is it a minute or an hour?
Well, see, once the electrons start flowing,
Okay.
once I get them kicking and flowing,
Okay.
and if I shut them off and they don't know that they're not being powered by anything, they'll keep going.
Okay.
The key is not to tell them that they're not flowing anymore.
I won't
There's
say
nothing.
anything if you don't.
There's nothing kicking them. So this is just a regular standard Shimano bike shifter. But I built these e-bikes with true transmission, so you can actually use the gears to give you more torque to get up a hill, give you more speed. So you shift, and it actually gives you power. It's got a transmission. And I put an electronic sensor, so it even knows when you're shifting, and shuts the motor off for 1.5 seconds while you're shifting. All right. But I'm like, okay, now I need a way to shift in the dark, because I like, using them for research. So I had to invent a shift light. I tried all sorts of things, and I'm like, ooh, I know what to do. It started with paint. Somebody developed this paint that could glow. You can buy it. It's paint that you can paint.
Yeah, I think
you
my kids have some on their ceiling.
Yeah, you put electrodes on it, and you can get it to glow. It's that's the technology.
Okay. All right. Russ, anything else?
One of the things I was curious about was I don't feel like we can let him go without asking. People want to know about Legend Meets Science. Everybody knows you're doing another show coming up, and really, they're first class things. I know you have scientists involved. DNA testing is always going to be a big part of this now. When can people expect that to be fruition?
Well, that's a good question. Only because, I don't like, I don't want to do it on the budget. So I've been, dealing with funding people and partners. And now there's a big film company looking at the whole thing to turn into a 3D movie. So I'm just waiting to get an answer. I'm not in a rush, only because I keep getting more evidence. The more evidence I get, the more I can test. And there's more things that we can do in it. I've got 24 new categories of evidence to look at.
On the
show.
Okay. Did you ever think about making it a series? That seems like a lot of stuff to fit into one episode.
No, well, it'd be a 2 to 3 hour show.
The hard thing is when you hear that, it's like the people that some of my friends are writing books, but there's always something new to add. And at some point you had to just cut it off and say, okay, this is where it's going to be at. And,
I realize, but then on the same token, I'm just kind of a little fadey on it. I'm pretty sure we'll be shooting this summer, no matter what. I can't wait too much longer.
Right.
And the shooting's the easy part. Really, the hard part's been developing all of the pieces of evidence and the storytelling behind the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the hard part. That's pretty much done. The easy part is actually the filming. That's actually,
if
to
you
me,
need a really
easy.
handsome on-camera guy.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Right here.
Yep. We got you, Russ. I heard somebody called you Lauren Coleman, like the younger Lauren Coleman. I'm like, nah, you guys don't look alike at all. Brad,
they called Brad that?
Yeah, I heard.
Wow, I had not heard that.
It was in one of the comments on one of your
really
shows.
Oh gosh,
he doesn't look you don't look anything like Lauren.
That's funny because Wes Germer had told me I'd ask his advice before we started the podcast, and he said, never read your comments.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I have not read any of them.
Oh, yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah, they're usually all good.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad
that's just because everybody likes us.
I read them for you. I'm
paying the we have a group of Filipino programmers that are adding comments and just like viewing stuff all constantly so we get the views.
But I do want to say you guys are doing an amazing job. I think this show is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, only because you guys really do care about the topic, and you just do a really good job. And you're both good, even both good on camera.
Well, I promise we do talk a lot about each episode before we do it, and we both do spend time, researching what we're going to talk about and that, because we care and we really are interested. And
well, not only do you guys care, but you're both very intelligent, and it's just I love watching your show.
Well, I tell you what,
thank you.
The one that drops on Thursday is our first non-Bigfoot related topic.
Oh,
and it was I thought it was very, very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
We had a gentleman that him and 3 other guys took a rowboat and rowed across the Atlantic Ocean in 69 days.
Whoa. See, now that means to me that stuff's fun to throw that in once in a while.
Oh, yeah. He was talking about being wet for 69 straight days.
Oh, I can imagine. See, I've got fantasies of adventures like that. Not that I'll ever do them, but man, I've had so many thoughts of doing something stupid like that. Because that is stupid. You got to realize.
Yeah.
That's not the brightest thing in the world to do.
No,
but
it was
it.
The thing that really shocked me was that he stated that swordfish was a problem because the swordfish would track the boat because there's algae on the bottom, and so little fish are following the boat, and the swordfish are trying to get the fish. And he said the sword will actually puncture the boat. If we can't get to it to repair it, the boat will sink.
Yeah, plus those things will leap out of the water once in a great while. And
he said flying fish.
Flying
fish was the problem, so they would get up overnight the flying fish would come in on the boat, so they would start taking the flying fish and throwing them overboard, and all that did was make chum. So then the sharks would come and follow.
Gosh, so he rode from what spot to what spot?
The Canary Islands to where was it, Russ?
I don't recall.
It was 3,000. I think about 3,000 miles.
3,000 miles.
Only 3,000 miles.
Yeah, only 3,000 miles.
3,000. They got hit in the middle of the night with a rogue wave and turned the boat over, and Andy saw a mermaid.
Did he have any UFO encounters on that?
He didn't say anything about that.
No, he
said it wasn't as clear as what you thought. Yeah, because the salt water made everything hazy, and you could see them, but not clear like you would think.
Oh, okay.
But it was a gentleman that my son had met on Twitter over weightlifting and stayed friends with him, and he's a Guinness World Record holder.
He's from the United Kingdom.
From the United Kingdom.
Could you imagine arm wrestling that guy after he rode 3,000 miles?
No.
No. So it drops this week, and it was pretty interesting. I enjoyed doing it. So
Doug, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate you. And I know, Brad and I always talk about, we may or may not be successful at this, but you have really given us a professional platform to try to be successful.
No, you will be. You are. You already are.
It won't be for our lack of effort, I assure you that, because Brad and I pretty much have been successful at everything
Your show will grow and grow. And it's just, there's no two podcasts alike. Yours is very unique from a standpoint of there's no other Dr. Russ, there ain't no other Brad Kennan.
Right.
And you guys have a great chemistry together, and you're very knowledgeable, and I just think it's cool. Plus, not only are you guys knowledgeable, you're curious.
Yeah. If you stop learning, you're dead.
Yeah.
That's kind of my theory in life. If you don't want to learn anymore, then you just really shouldn't be around.
Okay. So there's a scientific anti-aging fact related to that. Older people always say, it seems like yesterday, things go so quick now that you age. And scientists have found out it's because they stop learning. When you're young, you're learning all the time. Everything's new, and things seem to take a long time. But when you're older, a lot of times they aren't learning new things. They're repeating things they already know. They aren't striving to learn new things. So life seems like it's going really quick.
Yeah, that combined with it's less and less of a percentage of your life as you get older. Yeah, every day becomes less of a percentage. So if you combine those two,
right,
exactly. That's why this podcast seemed like it went by in 20 seconds.
Yeah. And we didn't get to talk about the 700 things I had on my sheet here. So hopefully we can get you back on and have you talk about some of the other things.
We'll do part 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Doug Hajicek, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Since you are the grand poobah of our little thing that we got going on here, like and subscribe to Untold Radio AM, correct?
Yes.
Untold Radio on YouTube, Spotify,
and hit the notification bell for Wide Open Research.
Yeah. Ding the bell, and every Thursday when our new episode drops, you guys get to see it first. So, all right, Doug, appreciate it.
Guys. Talk to you later.
Try to stay warm, and I may look into a pair of mucklucks.
You should trust me. You will not regret it.
They don't look that warm to me, but you're absolutely right. You buy an expensive pair. I
just got to tell you this quick story. So I took my daughter up to Ely last winter when it was like 40 below up there, and she wanted a pair of mucklucks, and we went to Steger Mucklucks. And who did we run into? Will Steger comes walking out, and I got to introduce him to my daughter because I know Will. But he's the guy, he's the Arctic explorer that was the first guy to go to the North Pole unassisted, walked across Antarctica. But here was Will. It was funny because there's Will standing outside my Jeep. We're warm inside with the window down. And Will's talking to my daughter, and we're just, just talking about stuff you talk about when you haven't seen somebody in 20 years. And Will goes, holy shit. He goes, I got to go. I'm freezing. And I went, oh my God, that was funny. I'm probably the only person that's ever heard that. Okay. See you guys.
Thanks,
all right.
Bye.
See you, Doug.
Bye.
All right, Russ.
So I got to tell you one other thing while I'm thinking about this. While we were talking, he was talking about those YZ cameras.
Yeah.
I had texted Matt Moneymaker from the Bigfoot Field Research Organization because it clicked with me. You remember earlier this year, there's those 2 tourists in the Hocking Hills of Ohio.
Yes.
That whenever they go to the bed and breakfast, they stick a camera on the window of where they're at, and they apparently recorded 2 Bigfoot coming down the hill. And of course, Matt was going to help them, put it public for people to go through all this. And apparently the people pulled the film because they wanted to go through it. They think that there's some money involved. And so it's not been in the public right now. But I asked Matt, I said, was those YZ cameras? And he said, yeah, that was what they were using.
Okay. Makes
so
sense.
No one else knows that, it's really not public knowledge, but they were those YZ cameras. So, maybe there's something in technology they're using that,
Yeah, I get it. All right. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Like and subscribe, Untold Radio.
Thanks for watching. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us for a while.
Instagram at Wide Open Research. wideopenresearch@gmail.com if you want to send us an email.
TheBigfootDoc.com.
And you're in the process of redoing your website.
Yeah, it's up and running still, but we're gonna redo it so that the podcast is on there, and people can have a way if they want to tell us a story. I give you the same confidence I give you my patience. I will not share it, and nobody's going to show up on your land to chase your Bigfoots.
All right, Russ. I'll talk.
It's good to see you, my friend.
All right, bye.